Hello out there, and welcome back to the GamecockScoop.com podcast, the official podcast of GamecockScoop.com on Rivals. I'm Caleb, joined by Alan, and we are breaking down the morning after of South Carolina's 37-30 win over Mississippi State last night. First SEC win of the 2023 season for the Gamecocks. I actually read on Reddit this morning, first Power 5 win by anyone from the state of South Carolina so far.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, right? Clemson's lost both their Power 5 games so
Florida
far.
State and Duke, yeah.
Prior to this, South Carolina had lost their other two Power 5
Coastal
games
lost
so
to
far.
UCLA. Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. Kicking things off. And you have the same record as Clemson right now, which, definitely there's a segment of the fan base that gets almost as much pleasure out of Clemson losing as South Carolina winning. So overall, a good weekend, right? My dad used to call these perfect weekends when South Carolina won.
Did you see the USC, the other USC SoCal tweet last night, by the way?
I didn't know.
Literally just captioned perfect weekend. It was their final score, the UCLA losing final score, the Notre Dame losing final score.
I'm surprised that they didn't take a shot at Colorado like everyone else did yesterday, too. By the way, we got a comment from Palmetto Flooring Gallery. Shout out also, hit us up about advertising if you want.
Yeah.
Great hard fought win. I think that's how you learn to win as young players. I think that's
a very good point.
Accurate. Yeah. My final point on my rapid reaction last night, which is me trying to take things a little bit deeper immediately after the game, which is sometimes tough to do, but was South Carolina simply made more winning plays when it mattered.
I said the same thing as someone last night in the box. Yes.
And you have a young team, and that's how a young team learns how to win is making those sorts of plays. I think that was an essential win. It wasn't perfect in any way, which we'll get into some of the ways it certainly wasn't, but you got to be happy with that. It's always tough to win SEC games. I think that's a basically evenly matched team to you, and you found a way to pull it out. And really, other than the brief moment that it was tied 30-30, you kind of had control of it throughout, even though maybe you felt like you could have pulled away a little bit more at times.
Yeah, I think the first thing you mentioned there is you make winning plays. Yeah, that game is tied in the fourth quarter. That can I don't want to explain it to you. The game was tied. Like, that can very easily go the other way. Jordan Strawn makes a play. He forces a fumble. Judge Collier has the presence of mind to realize that ball's live, picks it up, gets you down in the red zone. Mario Anderson, where we're going to talk about in a second here, makes a play, pushes a pile, scores. Boogie Huntley, you give up a fourth down, next play on the first down, gets a sack, gets Mississippi State behind the chains. Yeah, you make plays. And I think more than anything else, that was kind of a gut check drive quarter sequence for this team this season, because we talked about it. We talked about during the week how vital that game was for this team. They can't go 1-3, and you took a 14-0 lead. You lost a 14-0 lead. You kind of had to get back on the beam quickly, and you did. You found a way to make enough plays to win that game.
Well, and I think one of the things you just brought up is kind of fun. So I saw someone on Reddit or something, I can't remember where it was, say this was the best game by the D-line of the Shane Beamer era and the worst game by the secondary of the Beamer era. And I kind of think that there's some value to that. But those two plays that you're talking about, interception to on the 2-yard line, and scoop fumble and short return or whatever, both made by DBs, right? So even on an off night where you definitely did give up some big plays, we'll get into the historic sort of career night that Tulu Will Rogers and Tulu Griffin had for Mississippi State. But when the moment mattered, you made a couple of big plays. I'm still kind of confused about the interception, honestly.
Yeah, I was going to ask, was there a broadcast explanation on why that was allowed to stand?
All right, so they said basically in college, right, you only need on offense, you only need 1 foot inbounds for it to count. And they said by the hair of like a cleat, basically, he reestablished himself with his right foot inbounds while his left foot came up off the out of bounds line. and he was, just a hair inbounds before he
Okay.
caught it. It didn't look like
No,
it
watching the
should have
replay
been an
now, it still
interception to
doesn't look
me,
like
but
it.
that's a break for South Carolina. Also, if you are a Mississippi State fan or whatever, and you're trying to take the other side, the refs screwed us, whatever. It would have been fourth down. You probably kick a field goal there. Ultimately, I don't know that it makes that huge of a difference.
Also, that's a
they,
ridiculous throw by Rodgers to make in that situation.
yeah, exactly. So, sometimes the ball is oblong, right? Sometimes it bounces
It bounces.
the other way.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. That was a weird call. Not one that you see very often. But I did think the fumble was correct. Will Rogers' hand was not coming forward yet before it got dislodged and all of that. So, and that's obviously the bigger one, because at that point you are up 3, allows you to go in for a touchdown, go up 10, and really kind of ice the game from there. Another pretty important sequence came right after that. I thought that was when Mario Anderson scored from like 5 or 6 yards out.
9.
And
longest run of the night, actually.
9 yards out. Something you saw on that play was Tree Babalade getting out ahead, making a really key block on that toss play. And then Babalade knocks, I believe it was maybe Josh Simon as well.
Gargiulo was in there too.
Gargiulo sort of guided Anderson in. So it was one of those cool moments where you get like 4 guys falling into the end zone for a touchdown. And I just feel like symbolically that usually is like, oh, good team effort. Everyone's on the same page, and we made that happen. And I think that's a good little microcosm of the night, and kind of a good way to transition into one of the keys that you've written a lot about in the last 24 hours, which is the emergence of Mario Anderson. The emergence of a semblance of a run game. Let's not act like they ran for 200 yards last night or anything.
No,
but they outgained Mississippi State, who we expected to have a pretty good night on the ground. And yeah, you at least showed that you could be serviceable in the run game for the first time this season.
You ran the ball for over 100 yards last night, and that's even if you take out Spencer Rattler's numbers, you still ran the ball for over 100 yards between Anderson and Joyner. I think what this is going to have to look like. Again, you're still not good. You don't have Barry Sanders in your backfield. That's fine. Situationally, you can run the ball when you have to, I think. Mario Anderson in short yardage last night picked up a 4th and 1 early, picked up a 3rd and 1 later. He picked up, I think, another 3rd and 1 in the fourth quarter. The touchdown in the red zone. I think we've seen Dakereon Joyner 2 weeks in a row now take a direct snap on the goal line and score. I think you can do just enough with an identity, with something you think you can do well with short yardage. Beamer mentioned post-game that they kind of streamlined the running game this week just because Mississippi State simulates so many different pressures, does so many different things with that odd front, that 3-3-5, and they're like, we're going to see so many different looks. We might as well just focus on what we can do. Just find the few best running plays that work, and then just kind of rep those. That might be the way to go moving forward, honestly. You're not going to see a 3-3-5 every week, but just kind of doing it that way and realizing that your running game's limited but not completely debilitating if you get what you got last night.
Yeah, and I think that there's still a place for Dakereon Joyner, who didn't have a bad game by any stretch. Also scored also scored a rushing touchdown from the Wildcat again last night, which is 2 straight weeks on that. But I do think it was good that they finally were kind of stubborn about getting Mario Anderson involved. Yes. And he showed that, while he doesn't have elite speed, he is just the hardest runner that South Carolina has, and tends to always fall forward. He actually, this will be a little bit of a throwback, but he reminds me a little bit of like Ryan Brewer for South Carolina, where you're not ever going to mistake him for an NFL level running back or anything. But he just works hard. And that's sometimes all that you need. Not that Joyner's not working hard by any stretch or whatever, but
something to that too, not to cut you off, but this is, again, not a shot at Joyner at all. It's just the reality of it. Mario Anderson's a running back. There were a couple times last night where he found holes that Joyner just wasn't finding. Times that, whether it's Tree or Nick or Vershawn are opening up lanes that, because he's a natural running back, he's been doing it his whole life, he just was able to find the hole. And maybe a 2-yard gain for Joyner is a 5-yard gain for him because he just is there a second quicker.
Yep. And there's also a couple of times in short yardage that you were able to lean on the run game and make it happen. I know you mentioned a 4th and 1 pickup by Anderson, a couple times down near the goal line. So, I think if you get this every week, this is enough. I think probably next week you don't see as much of a imbalance towards the rush. Last night you
That
had,
was surprising to me,
yeah,
even with how they were running it better. I
yeah,
I mean, I had to say Mario Anderson, even at the D2 level, almost 3 times in 3 years had that many carries.
yeah. So you had 47 rushes last night to 20 passes. I think it'll probably be more 50-50 or even 60-40 skewed towards passing heading forward. But I think it's pretty obvious that they saw something on tape with that 3-3-5 where they felt like they could run the ball, and then they were pretty stubborn about making
Yes.
it happen to the point that sometimes you and I both were kind of like, I don't know if I would have run it on 3rd and 4 there, but
Yeah, there was the one series, and you end up getting a break, which credit to Spencer. It's the red zone series, the first red zone series on the second touchdown drive, the one that goes to the end of the first quarter and then it switch ends. It starts the second quarter. You run the ball 3 times in a row from Mississippi State. I think that series started at 25. Three runs for 6 yards, 4th and 4. I think we're both because it was the last play of the first quarter. We both spent the quarter break like you're gonna run the ball 3 times in a row. Come out of the second quarter, Spencer executes the hard count perfectly. I thought that was a very key play that no one's going to talk about. Gets you a first down. Next play, touchdown pass to Trey Knox. I maybe wouldn't have run it that many times, and I think you're right. They're not going to every week. But again, you ran the ball and you had to, and I think you know it's there.
Yeah. And honestly, it made a big difference last night. Maybe it's not like Spencer Rattler had a bad game, right? He completes the first 17 passes. Ended up 18 for 20. The 2 incompletions were still on target. One was a missed pass interference call in the end zone to Omega Blake, and the other was it Knox in the hands, and he dropped it.
Yes, it was right in the hands.
So
5 minutes ago.
Pretty much a perfect night from Spencer Rattler. He had a 260 QBR, 260.5, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns, 90% completion percentage. He's completing 74% of his passes on the season. It would be much higher than that if he didn't go like what was it, like 6 for 24 in the fourth quarter in Athens. So I mean, he's just been truly elite. Xavier Legette, on a night that Alshon Jeffrey gets his jersey retired, he has 5 receptions for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns, 275 plus yard touchdown catches. One that was just all yak, where he caught a little slant on the first drive? Yeah, first drive of the game and took it.
Okay, I wanted to bring up that play too, because Mario Anderson on that play, it is 3rd down. You talk about just making plays. Mario Anderson, Mississippi State, there's a blitz there from Watson, Mississippi State's leading tackler. He was second in the SEC in tackles last year. Mario Anderson steps up in the hole, basically takes a bull rush from one of the best tacklers in the league, gives Spencer an extra second, hits Legette, throws for a touchdown. That's a winning play by your running back there.
Yeah, definitely. And something that we talked about, I guess, in the lead up of like, why is Mario Anderson not getting as much play? Is it because Takarian Joyner's been better in pass protection or what? I think, Mario Anderson definitely proved that he can play that role just fine too, which is something that they're going to have to ask him to play with the way this offense is constructed. Also, I feel like at this point, it's safe to make a bold statement 4 games into the season. This is the best offense that South Carolina's had since the Steve Spurrier era. Yeah. And that's credit to Dowell Loggins, credit to Shane Beamer for believing in Dowell Loggins, and obviously credit to Spencer Rattler, who's taken just a huge step forward, really since that Tennessee game last year. He's moving up some NFL draft boards. It's arguable that he's the best quarterback in the SEC so far this season. I mean, numbers-wise, it's inarguable he is.
Yeah, and I think the Dowell Loggins point too, that's 4 games in a row you've scored a touchdown on your first 2 drives, one of them. And tonight or last night, obviously you got one on both of your first 2 drives. Have you ever covered or seen a football game where you had a 98-yard and a 99-yard touchdown drive on back-to-back possessions to open a game?
No, I mean, there's a reason that those were the two longest drives back to back of the Shane Beamer era. It's kind of funny watching you on Twitter because you're like, oh, that 98-yard drive was the longest drive of the Shane Beamer era. And then Mississippi State has another perfect punt, which too bad for them, honestly. That's back to back perfect punts for Mississippi State to
Two
pin
different
you
punters,
inside
by the
your
way,
two.
and they both hit one inside the two.
And you're like, all right, well, now they have an opportunity to break that record immediately with a 99-yard drive. And of course, that's what they did. I think the 99-yard drive is honestly a little bit more impressive.
It was.
You have
16
the big
plays.
play. Yeah, I was going to say you have the big play on the first one, which, I mean, great for them. That was 6 plays, 98 yards. But that second drive was 16 plays, 99 yards, 7 minutes and 15 seconds time of possession. That's an offensive coordinator's dream right there. You can't really ask for much better than that. We're kind of skipping around a little bit, which is how these Sunday shows sometimes go because we just have
also how that game was.
Yeah, so many things that we want to get to. I did want to give you guys another fun stat on Leggett. He was the first receiver since Alshon Jeffrey in 2010 to start the season with 400 receiving yards in the first 4 games of the season. He actually has 550 or something like that. So he's actually smashed that. But kind of cool on a night when Alshon Jeffrey's jersey is getting retired. He's there giving a little halftime speech. We also had some press coverage of him yesterday that Leggett's seemingly kind of in that mold right now. I was texting my dad during the game and he actually was like, he reminds me of Jeffrey right now. He's a lot faster than Alshon Jeffrey ever was. No offense to Alshon Jeffrey, who is a great Gamecock, obviously.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for the afterburner side of it too. Just you take that slant and you go the first play of the second half, which is a 75-yard touchdown. He creates a little bit of separation, but that's a speed touchdown. I think he caught the ball at his own 35, 40, and he just does the rest with his legs. That's just, again, you talk about winning plays. I don't even know what else to say about Leggett at this point. He's already over 500 receiving yards for the season. He's the first player ever with 270-yard games in a month of this program. That's an NFL wide receiver right now, which I wouldn't have said going into the year, but I don't think you can even argue it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would have said he had the tools, right? He flashed it here and there, especially last year near the end of the season. But he's really put it together down to start this season. And it makes you excited if you can get Juice Wells back for having both of them on the field at the same time, which we saw resulted in a touchdown drive against one of the best defenses of the country last week. So this offense is already, like I said, bold statement, the best since the Steve Spurrier era. And it's not even at full strength, which is a credit to all those guys I said before, Rattler and Loggins and really everyone that's pieced it together. Also the offensive line. Do you now have your 5, you think? Your 5 that you kind of roll with from this point forward? After the first 2 drives last night, your 5 that went the rest of the way, you had Babalade at left tackle, you had Gargiulo at left guard, you had Vershawn Lee at center, you had Trovon Ball, another true freshman, at right guard, and you had Tyshawn Wanamaker actually at right tackle, and kind of went that way the rest of the way. You had a pretty good night. I thought you only gave up 4 sacks and
only
5 tackles
one
for
offensive
loss.
line penalty too, the false start on Trovon.
Right. And if I am going to be fair, I guess, on Trovon's first drive, he got absolutely blown by for a sack. I believe it was by Jet Johnson. But I mean, that's a all SEC caliber linebacker. So, that's going to happen. Exactly. If we want to start to get into the negatives, I wanted to play a little clip from Shane Beamer's post game last night, because even though obviously he's happy to get that win, he didn't necessarily come out all roses after the game. Let me share this clip real quick. Sorry, dead air. Here we go.
Key was control number 7 and control number 5. And we did a good job of controlling the running back, held him to 27 yards rushing. But my gosh, 7 catches for 256 yards for Griffin. Embarrassing, frankly. Just some bad pass defense by our guys. We got a lot to get better at, just getting balls thrown over our heads. And we came in at halftime and told the guys, we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing, except we're not controlling number 5. And last night.
All right, so that was Shane Beamer last night talking about Tulu Griffin, who, like he said, he just read that stat line. I'll read it one more time. 7 catches, 256 yards, 1 touchdown. He averaged 36.6 yards per catch.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
He had Mississippi State's program record for receiving yards in a game early in the third quarter. Just ridiculous.
Yeah. If you go back and watch it, I mean, I definitely saw a couple of this happen a couple of times live. A lot of those are play action passes. A lot of those are your safety, be it Eamon Worry or DQ Smith, neither of which had the best game of their career last night. Getting stuck, looking in the backfield on the run, and just not having any help over the top. And then you were kind of playing Griffin straight up with a corner in man. It looked like in a lot of those, which, some of that falls on the corner getting beat there, but you also just had no safety help over the top. So once he got behind the corner and caught it, he was gone. That's why you had so many of those big plays there. It's tough to fully, separate this from the fact that you had the SEC's leading rusher coming into this game, and obviously Clayton White and the defense had put an emphasis on slowing down number 7, as Beamer just said in that clip. You did do that. Obviously, he got hurt. Jaquavius Marks got hurt about halfway through the game. But before that, he had 12 rushes for 27 yards, a long of 7. He averaged 2.3 yards per rush. You effectively shut down Mississippi State's run game, which is something that they were quite good at heading into this one. But it can't swing so far in the other direction that you give up nearly 500 yards passing to Will Rogers, who, he's number 3 now on the all-time SEC passing list. He's not a slouch, but you have to play better than that. And you're immediately going to be tested next week against Tennessee, who's going to try to throw it all over you.
Yeah, I think when you look at that, all right, your secondary has been pretty good this year, pretty good last year. Is that a blip, or is that what you're looking at going forward? And I don't think it's what you're looking at going forward, big picture. We should mention O'Donnell Fortune, I actually think did get beat on one of those 2 Griffin long plays in the first half. He got banged up third quarter, some with his knee. Shane said it shouldn't be anything long-term. But you had Judge Collier in the game a lot. David Spalding got hurt too. Shane said he's fine. But you were kind of you were playing DQ at nickel a little bit. You were doing Jalen and Nick at safety. You didn't have as much rotation there last night as maybe you wanted. And then you added Mississippi State being pretty much an obvious passing every play of their last 2 drives. But no, 500 yards, I think it was 487 was the final number. That can't happen. You're going to face a quarterback next week who is pretty much known for his deep balls. Joe Bill could throw a ball through outer space. I think it's just to me, you're letting guys behind you. I mean, there was one play last night, Mississippi State's last drive, the field goal drive that cut it to 7, 3rd and 11, keep everything in front of you, free runner, 29 yards. I don't know which corner it was. That just can't happen. And I'm curious what they see on the film out of that and maybe what changes going into next week.
Yeah, there was actually one other moment that I'm thinking of last night that Tulu Griffin might have had another 70-yard touchdown, but
and Boogie got a sack.
Yeah,
or maybe it was TJ Sanders, but there was a guy wide open. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I do think we can probably classify it as more of a blip based on what we've seen over the last 2 years from many of these same players. I don't know if Eamon Worry's still got any lingering effects from that injury. To me, most of what I saw last night was mental, just getting caught up in the run. And granted, both he and Smith will come up in the run and make big plays.
Kilgore too, for that matter.
Yeah, have done so throughout their career. I don't think you want to completely eliminate that aspect of their game, but got to find some balance in between. Can't have a night like you had last night because it happened consistently. Obviously, if you give up one of those a game or whatever, you live with that. those deep balls were what kept Mississippi State in this game. Otherwise, South Carolina probably dominates in a completely different fashion. On the flip side, let's talk about the defensive line. I thought the defensive line had, maybe the best game of the Shane Beamer era. They had 4 sacks, 9 tackle for losses, several batted down balls. They forced that fumble, which ultimately led to the deciding touchdown in this one. What are your takeaways from the defensive line and the front 7 in general, I guess, from last night?
Yeah, I actually wanted to mention one more play and one player we haven't gotten to yet on the defensive line. So after the Dakereon Joyner fumbles, Mississippi State's driving. There's that weird play where Will Rogers scrambles and he looks like he's setting up 1st and goal, and he fumbles, and a couple players have a chance to get on it. Mississippi State gets back on it. It is 3rd and less than a yard from the 5. Mississippi State is a push away from a first down, 5 yards away from taking the lead for the first time. You go 3 defensive tackles in the game, and Nick Barrett, who hasn't played that much, gets in under his blocker, brings Will Rogers down in the backfield on a sneak. I was surprised Zach Garnett kicked a field goal in that spot on that ensuing 4th and 1. I guess it was 4th and 6. I think they took delay a game. But Nick Barrett made a big play last night, and that's one of your rotational defensive tackles. He's probably your he is by snap count, your number 4 defensive tackle behind Tonka, Boogie, and TJ. But he made a big play last night. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about the running game identity, being able to do enough. I think you have for lack of a better term, a big play defense. It's kind of that bend but don't break that we talked about on the Thursday show. But you gave up yards. You made plays in the red zone. You forced 2 turnovers. I thought Boogie Huntley was really good last night. I'm thinking of that one series where he had a sack and a tip ball on back-to-back plays in the 4th quarter. TJ Sanders picked up where he left off. Jordan Strawn, I don't think we've mentioned him by name yet, but he had the forced fumble on Rogers that obviously ended up setting up a touchdown.
Jatius Gear even.
I was going to say he had a tip, batted a pass down in the 2nd quarter. Tyree Johnson was back healthy. He played, I don't know the number, I felt like about 30-ish snaps. He looked okay to me.
I was about to say, I think that's another thing that maybe we're not mentioning is you were about the healthiest that you've been up front for the entire season, which allowed people to get some more breaks. You didn't necessarily see as dominant of the highest tackler last night was O'Donnell Fortune with 6 total tackles. Throughout the season thus far, we've seen several guys in the teens for the leading tackler. It was a lot more spread out last night because I think they were just able to get a rotation going, which is going to be huge down the stretch. I mean, it's a long season. It's a tough conference. You need to keep those guys healthy and keep a rotation going there.
Yeah, and I think once you start to kind of look at it from that perspective, it's like, all right, you've got 4 defensive tackles in there you're feeling pretty good about. 5 if you count Elijah Davis, who played more last night too, and I thought looked okay. And then you go to the edge. All right, you got a healthy Tyree Johnson, healthy Jordan Strawn, T.S. Gear, Brian Thomas Jr., Desmond Umeozulu came in at a couple obvious passing downs last night. I'm thinking of one move right at the end of the first half, and Mississippi State was driving.
Tuazama.
So that's 6 guys right there on the edge and 5 in the middle. That's 11 defensive linemen that you feel good enough about to have in the game in big spots the 4th quarter of an SEC game. I don't know if all 11 played in the 4th last night, but I think they did.
No, and that's different. Yeah, I would say that's different than last year where you had Zach Pickens and Jordan Burch as obvious like future NFL guys. Maybe you don't have anyone quite that dominant yet, although maybe some of them can develop into it.
There's a lot of another one who didn't play much last night, but you still feel okay about him. He played last week a good bit in Athens. Right.
And pretty much all those guys you mentioned have a good bit of eligibility remaining, save, Strahan, who's obviously like a 7th year player or whatever he is now. So yeah, I think the future is bright through most of those 11 guys that you just mentioned. Tuazama might also be a one and done sort of guy, but the rest of those guys, Gear's a freshman or redshirt.
Gear was a grad JUCO transfer through Syracuse. So
I think he's younger than that.
Oh, no way. Tuazama was Syracuse to grad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think Gear's a redshirt sophomore or something like that. He's got a couple of.
You've got bodies at the point. You've got bodies.
Yeah, and bodies that I think are going to continue to contribute in the future is, I guess, what my point there was. Other sort of takeaways that we haven't hit on from this game. I think you saw some good things from Trey Knox last night. We did mention the one drop, but he also had 4 catches for 53 yards, one touchdown. He also is just a big part of what works on that offense, even though when the ball is not in his hands. He got banged up there for a second, took a stinger or whatever, kind of just fell hard. I was worried that maybe he hit his head hard on the ground and it was concussion, but he came back a few plays later. But yeah, he's just so essential from a blocking standpoint as well. And he's one of your better weapons outside of Leggett. Reliable weapons. Big target for Spencer Rattler.
You saw a lot more of those 2 tight end sets again last time. I think at this point you're pretty comfortable saying that's just part of the Dowell Loggins offense, and I think that helps you run the ball. Trying to think if there's anything else. I don't know what to do with it. Do you want to mention that this? I guess I'm doing it now, but the special teams thing at the end of the first half, I haven't seen a good angle on that. I don't really know what happened. So what happened? Mississippi, I'll just say, but Mississippi State kicked the field goal at the end of the first half, 53-yarder. Kick is missed. South Carolina's flagged for an illegal formation because they had a player lined up over the center. Mississippi State kicker gets another shot at it from 5 yards closer, makes it. Obviously, it's a 3-point penalty. Shane said after the game that they were trying to switch Boogie Huntley from one A gap to the other.
Yep.
And his shoulder. I have not seen the replay. I'm pulling it up now, but
it was. I thought it was a little ticky tacky. They said he shifted over the snapper, which obviously your body can't be over a snapper on a field goal. It looked like, I mean, I was coming out of a timeout, so it looked like an intentional play call that they had done to try to overload that side. Beamer said as he was heading into the half that basically he thought he wasn't any more shaded on that side than he was before, and that you could call that on any field goal basically. But because that shift actually happens right before the snap, I think it just like refs into it. Exactly. I mean, it's an unfortunate thing that that and the 2-point conversion could have loomed large if you lose this game. But at the same time, I think the shift worked if you don't get called for the penalty. And the 2-point conversion play was at a good time analytics wise.
It was there. Remember, I mean, it was TJ Sanders. Just
it was open. He floated it a little bit too far, or too long. Gave the defender time to get underneath it. But the broadcast, I don't even know what they were talking about. They tried to say that was not them playing the analytics, and it absolutely was, because you score a touchdown with like 40 seconds before halftime. You know you're getting the ball after the half. If you're going to take a risk, that's the best time to take that.
Yeah, and the play was there. I think regardless of the situation, if you think you have a look, go for it. And I think Kai would tell you should have made that throw. I think Shane will tell you Kai should have made that throw, just based on what we've seen him do in the past.
First incompletion of Kai Kroger's career, right?
Yeah, end of an era. The play was there. I thought the call was fine. Again, obviously, if you lose that game by 1, you lose that game by 3, whatever, you don't think the call is fine. You wake up this morning mad about the math, but it was there. Yeah, I don't know. That's what happens sometimes.
I think probably we talked about this heading in, that Limbo is never happy with special teams, but he, in particular this season, hasn't felt like they've played up to their level yet. I think you could say maybe more of the same last night, but
on that point, Mitch Jeter kicked the ball through the end zone all night, which means Tulu Griffin did not get touches in space on kick returns, which, as we saw what he was doing them from scrimmage, that matters. That could have been a different game if you got a kick return.
And you had pretty good coverage on punts. I think there were a couple of returns. There was one in particular where you outkicked your coverage, but for the most part, you kind of forced very little return yardage on the punts as well. So, yeah, overall, I don't think it. I don't know that they've had a bad game from a special team standpoint. I just think we've seen them be so exceptional that some of these miscues have stood out through the first 4 games.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to put it. The penalty was bad. I know you can call it a ticky-tack call or whatever, but that still shouldn't happen. And Pete Lembo would probably tell you the same thing. But other than that, yeah, I thought you handled the kicking game well, the punting game. Mitch Jeter hit his field goal, which gave you the lead at the time when he did that.
Eddie Lewis finally had a decent little return.
Yes,
Unfortunately,
I forgot to mention that 22-yard return.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unfortunately, he got a little banged up a little bit later on reception. We'll see if that has any lingering effect or whatever. But yeah, nice return by him. Do you want to look forward at Tennessee at all? Just really quickly, how are you feeling coming out of this beginning stretch? We talked about you had to split UNC and Mississippi State to kind of have everything set up for you, and you did it.
I think you're still where you need to be at 2-2. You couldn't lose that game last night. We talked about how vital that was. I say this, I didn't watch any of Tennessee yesterday. I know they beat UTSA with a backup quarterback playing for UTSA. So, okay, got back on track. Looks like Milton had a pretty good game. You absolutely can go to Neyland Stadium and win that game. You're capable of it. I don't think Tennessee's shown you anything so far this year. You can't beat them. I think you're going to have a better quarterback on the field. You're going to have the best wide receiver on the field with Leggett. Obviously, you're going to need a way better performance from your secondary than you had last night. That kind of goes without saying. And you're going to need your offensive line to handle the noise, the environment better than they did in Athens. I don't know how many false starts they had in Athens, but I don't know it was 7 total O-line penalties against Georgia. You go to a snake pit here. I mean, Tennessee fans are going to be up for this one after what happened last year.
Yeah, it's a revenge game for sure.
It's going to be a really good environment. I'm looking forward to it.
If you could set the line right now, what do you think that the line opens as?
It's a good question. Tennessee, I think Tennessee favored playing at home and still 3-1. Tennessee favored by 5. I kind of think this might open about where it opened last week for South Carolina. It's Mississippi State.
Yeah, that's about where I would put it. It wouldn't surprise me if Vegas somehow, just based on analytics, based on ranking, based on the revenge game factor and it being at home, maybe they push Tennessee up to maybe like 6.5, 7, but we'll see. I do think it's a game that you should go into believing you can win. Yes. Probably still top 2 hardest games left on the schedule. As far as and because of the road factor, maybe it's even more difficult than Clemson. And let's be fair, Clemson hasn't. Yeah, they haven't looked as dangerous this year so far. Although they played well yesterday, and we can talk a little bit about, I guess, around the country yesterday too. But yeah, we'll have plenty more on GamecockScoop.com, kind of previewing Tennessee in the coming days. We'll be back here on Thursday on the podcast to talk about it. Do you want to talk about just around the country real quick from yesterday? Colorado came rocketing back to earth.
I think we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything to say about that. Their linemen are about 40 pounds smaller than Oregon's. That was always going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we could, I guess the only note there is just how dominant it was. I mean, Oregon was up 35-0 at halftime. I think Colorado had 35 yards or something in the first half.
I have a Pac-12 take, actually, watching this game in the press box last night while I was writing. It was on one of the TVs. Washington, I don't want to say this as their seasons are going to end the same way. This is apples to apples. But Washington has the best offense college football's seen since the Joe Burrow LSU year.
That's
Michael Penix just threw 16 touchdowns in 4 weeks. They had 40 points before halftime again last night against a Power 5 opponent who isn't good but has a pretty good defense usually. Cal's kind of a Justin Wilcox, a defense guy. And, I mean, once again, Michael Penix just making it look like a video game last night. 4 more touchdown passes.
Yeah, and if you
59.
If you look at the final score there, it's 59-32. You may be like, oh, well, they score a lot of points, but they're like USC and they give up a lot of points. They took
a lot of garbage time.
I would say they took the foot off the gas at halftime. It was 45-12 at halftime. So that's a little bit more of an indicator there. Yeah, I mean, I think that they deserve to be ranked higher than 8 or whatever they are right now. They'll get into the meat of their schedule here shortly. They got Arizona this coming week, who is 3-1, and then they have Oregon the week after that. So we'll know who they are and whether that offense holds up against.
Is just so fun to watch.
No doubt about that. Other takeaways, we briefly mentioned it, but Florida State gets an overtime win in Death Valley against Clemson. Florida State's the better team there, but Clemson had their opportunities to win. it's a tough place to go play and win. And that was the first time that Florida State had won in Death Valley since Jameis Winston in the national
13.
championship year. So I think some of the fact that it was so close has to do with Florida State getting the monkey off their back too. It's, to beat the man, you got to beat the man sort of thing.
I thought Garrett Riley kind of overthought it. I thought the way Maffa was running, the way Shipley was running. I'm thinking of 3 plays. I'm thinking of the play that ended up being the strip sack on Klubnik when Clemson's up 7 and driving. I think they should have kept running the ball there. I don't know if you saw what they did, but the reverse double pass kind of thing with like 2 minutes to go in the red zone when they were A, running well, but B, trying to kill clock, save Florida State a timeout with the incompletion. And then I think this is more on Klubnik, but the 3rd and 1 RPO in overtime where Klubnik makes the wrong read, throws the bubble screen, tackle behind the line of scrimmage. I think Klubnik actually said to his credit post game, like, yeah, we had to look. I should have handed the ball off on that one. I don't know why you're just calling a run play directly there in that situation, the way you're running, because Shipley and Maffa both looked very good yesterday against a very good D line.
I mean, so much of the way that offense operates, though, is having that option on almost every play, though.
Yeah, but your quarterback's got to make the right decision. And
I'm
not saying he got it wrong every time yesterday, but in the biggest play of the game, Klubnik made the wrong decision on the RPO.
No, I mean, to me, the past couple of years of Clemson, and maybe someone will clip this or whatever if you're a Clemson fan and scoreboard me or something like that, but this is kind of who Clemson is if you don't have two of the most elite quarterback prospects in college football, recent college football memory. I mean, and I don't even think that that's really a slight. Like, Clemson is a good team. They recruit pretty well. They should be in the top 2 of the ACC, year in and year out. But the thing that elevated them to where they were making all those playoffs, it seems pretty apparent, is those 2 quarterbacks, and you had elite receiver play. I mean, a lot of those receivers are playing on Sundays now too, and you haven't
Higgins,
had that.
Justin
Ross,
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, enough about Clemson. Alabama pulls off a 24-10 win against Ole Miss. Man, I will say, just a quick note, the Lane Kiffin trolling stuff is really entertaining to me. The Deion Sanders stuff is really entertaining to me. This season, from a national standpoint, has just been fun so far.
Yeah.
Even if, both of them, I guess, got their just desserts yesterday, and if that's the way you want to frame it. I love the personalities of college football. If I want to watch like super distilled, boring, by the book football, I'll watch the NFL. I like the way some of these things have played out in the media. But yeah, Bama they were down early in that one, but after a blocked kick or blocked punt against Ole Miss, kind of like settled in and boa constricted that one out. Really,
Lane Kiffin. I don't think Bama's fixed. I did think they were going to win that game and pick them to cover on the staff picks. Lane Kiffin going on the air Sunday and saying, "Hey, we figured it out. Bama's actually calling plays. There's a new defensive coordinator at Bama," and then going and scoring 10 points and no touchdowns in the second half.
Yeah,
is a tough look.
I mean, yeah, it's tough. Kiffin's 0-7 against Saban now or something. 0-4. I don't remember something.
Like that, yeah.
0 and something. Like I said, I enjoy his trolling, but it's going to continue to fall on deaf ears if he can't ever get the win. And I think he's probably running out of opportunities too. Who knows how many?
Said he was yesterday.
Yeah,
I thought that was a pretty funny quote too. Oh, he's implying 3 hours for a kickoff and Saban's going to retire after this year.
In a thing that maybe only interests a certain segment of the college football world, Kansas is 4-0 again.
Do you know the only undefeated versus undefeated matchup next week, anywhere in college football, FBS at least, is Kansas versus Texas?
I think that could be a fun game. Kansas looks pretty good. I obviously would pick Texas to win, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's close. In a game that crushed my soul, so I had a four pick parlay yesterday.
Oh no!
And I got the first 3 legs of it right.
Oh, no.
And the last leg of it was Oregon State -3.
Oh no! I saw that. Oregon State scored late. I saw that. Oh yeah. No!
So Washington State ends up winning 38-35, and I lose $100. That's the way it goes sometimes. But entertaining game. Washington State jumped out to
4-0.
like a 3 touchdown lead, and then Oregon State battled back in. But Florida kind of struggled with Charlotte, but ends up winning 22-7. And then, yeah, I mean, they blew the doors off of Tennessee the week
Fascinated
before.
by Florida going to Kentucky next week. I think that could go a lot of different ways.
It does feel, when you're looking at the Gamecocks' rest of season schedule, every game really at this point sort of feels toss-up-y to me. The only guaranteed, not even guaranteed, but like probable win I think you pencil in is Jacksonville State, maybe Vandy.
I think Vandy's pretty bad. I think we might have a bad read there saying they were better. AJ Swan does not look healthy.
Yeah. But then the rest of the schedule, honestly, I don't think that there's a game that you expect to lose, but I don't know that there's too many that you expect to win either. So should be really interesting down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Just thinking earlier, see Mizzou, again, kind of ugly. That's 3 weeks in a row with a 1-possession win. But they get it. They beat Memphis by 7. They're 4-0. And they're probably going to be 5-0 with Vandy next week. And then I think they get LSU the week after, so that should be fun.
I mean, we've seen that Missouri can ugly up a game and win it against South Carolina.
They got skill position players. Luther Burden, I mean, I know you know the big game last night. There's not much you can do with it. And then you talk about don't let one wide receiver ruin your night for South Carolina last night with Tulu. Luther Burden can ruin your night pretty quick. Kentucky 4-0. Go to Vanderbilt, handle business. I think they forced 3 turnovers. I know they had a pick 6 pretty early in that game. They get Florida next week in Lexington. Arkansas, LSU. I didn't watch one snap of that game, obviously, but
they kept cutting in during our broadcast. It looked like it was really fun. I didn't get to watch any of it live, obviously, but Arkansas kept battling back every time LSU kind of had them on the ropes, but ultimately couldn't pull it off. Ohio State wins in a last second touchdown over Notre Dame. They're down 14-10. Score as time expires. Was it as time expires with the touchdown?
You know Notre Dame had 10 on the field there, right? Did you see that?
I didn't. Another, I guess, South Carolina note, we had another moment out of a timeout where South Carolina had 10 defenders last night.
Nick Barrett ran on late on Mississippi State's the Mike Wright touchdown run. Yeah.
Which
is that just a goal line thing, you think, like around college football? Because that's happened a few times to some teams. Florida had 1 or 2 of those against Utah week 1. Is that just we're on the goal line, we're not running base personnel, we're having a hard time getting the right guys in there?
I think so, yeah. You definitely have different groups. One more, I guess, South Carolina question or note or something. Where's Juju McDowell? 2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row, yep. 0 snaps on offense. Or was I didn't see any.
So I'm as far as we know, he's not injured or anything. I think he needs to be working into the rotation for 5 touches a game or
he's
whatever.
Healthy. So, he was on kick return last night with Leggett back there.
So I think that's a weapon that maybe is underutilized right now. Maybe we see that change in the coming weeks.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That's puzzling 2 weeks in a row. Yeah. Especially if you're running the ball almost 50 times last night. He didn't get any of those carries.
Yep. So, all right. Well, we will have more breakdown of Tennessee throughout the week on GamecockScoop.com. Go check us out. Great time to subscribe. Quarter of the way through the season. Make sure you like and subscribe us on YouTube, social media. All of it's at Rivals Gamecock. And we'll be back on Thursday to preview the Tennessee game. Till next time, this has been the GamecockScoop.com podcast. We'll see you.